Several years ago, my sister totally went after me and took my boyfriend. So my folks are trying to patch things up by bringing my estranged sister to my celebration of love. I'm 28 and my sister's 26. It's been around 6 years since we last talked, and it all stems from a terrible incident that I'll get into shortly. For some reason, my parents never stepped in to cool down the intense sibling rivalry that was always there between my sister and me as we were growing up. They definitely pushed us to step up our game and compete harder. Looking back, I realized that wasn't the best decision, as it led to a lot of jealousy among us. Honestly, things might have turned out differently if they had just handled it earlier instead of waiting around. Back in the day, we could sometimes put our disagreements on hold. But as we grew older, our hostility towards each other intensified. By the time we hit high school, we barely talked to each other. And honestly, we were totally fine with that. After that, I headed off to college and only caught up with my sister when I returned the cottage, which was definitely better than being stuck around someone who was a bit of a downer all the time. I started dating my fiance just as I was about to graduate. After 3 years of friendship, he finally mustered the courage to ask me out right before I graduated from college. I totally agreed because I thought he was awesome too. After years of friendship, it felt like no big deal, so I decided to move in with him right after graduation. So after dating for 3 months, I decided to bring him the cottage for dinner one weekend to finally introduce him to my parents. So my sister, who just started college, decided to come to the cottage for the weekend. It was a recipe for chaos, and we were both in the thick of it. Back then, everything in my life was just clicking into place. I had an amazing boyfriend, a fulfilling career, and my own place. My sister, on the other hand, was struggling a bit more. She was really frustrated about having to go with her backup college after not making it into her top pick. My parents eventually mentioned that she was struggling to make friends at college, which explained why she was coming to the cottage so often. It was pretty obvious my sister wasn't thrilled when I introduced my boyfriend to our parents. In the background, she was totally pouting. I went ahead and introduced them, even though my partner knew about the awkward vibe I had with her. She immediately flipped the charm switch as I made the introduction. I did my best to brush it off, even if it felt a bit off. But then things took a turn for the weird. My sister seemed really curious about my boyfriend's life and kept trying to engage him in conversation while we were all hanging out together. We were totally spooked, but we just kept quiet. Then she crossed the line and started flirting with him right in front of me during dinner. She was completely obvious about it. It was obvious she was just trying to get under my skin. I really hoped my boyfriend wouldn't see just how messed up my family is. I attempted to brush it off for a while, but I finally reached my limit. As my lover, I couldn't hold back my anger and told my sister to knock it off because it was just gross seeing her throw herself at him like that. She just rolled her eyes and kept talking to him. I lost it and yelled at her, saying he was my guest and that she needed to treat him with respect because she was making him feel uneasy. She was just helping my partners see that there were other options out there, and I remember her saying he deserved better. We started throwing insults back and forth due to the way she said it, which honestly got under my skin. I noticed she wasn't keeping up with me, so I called her a loser and said she was just bitter about it. That comment really hit her hard. She yanked me over and smacked me after seizing my hair from across the table. I was caught off guard since it had been ages since we last had any kind of fight. Not since middle school, so I didn't know how to react at first. But things really heated up when she hit me. Things got so out of hand that my boyfriend and our parents had to step in and separate us. Despite both of us being bruised and battered by the end, we just kept shouting at each other. My partner was the one who pulled me away, got me in the car, and drove us to the cottage, trying to reassure me the entire time. That situation could have dragged on forever if he hadn't been there with me. So I was really thankful to have him around since I was feeling pretty stressed out. I totally cut off communication with my sister after that incident. Even though we had clashed before, this time it was on a whole different level of intensity. That was it for me. Given that we were already living separately, I have to say I stopped feeling like she was really part of my family. So my parents hit me up the day after the whole thing went down to let me know they had a talk with my sister. They were holding out hope that we could find a resolution eventually, even though she wasn't ready to say sorry. I let them know that I wasn't interested in sorting this out. I was completely done with her, so I figured it was best for our relationship to remain terrible. They tried to sway me, but I pointed out that they also had a part to play in this. They totally overlooked our intense sibling rivalry since childhood and even encouraged it. So it's no surprise they weren't shocked that we didn't want to be together. We ended up clashing because they just couldn't see things my way. A few days later, they called to apologize and admitted they messed up. It felt kind of pointless at the time, but I let it go. Even though I had already decided not to engage with my sister, I still wanted to maintain my connection with my parents. It's been 6 years since that event, and I haven't had any communication with my sister since then. As long as they don't push me to reconcile, I'm totally fine with my parents having a standard relationship with her. We don't chat much, but I've noticed her at family get-togethers. We steer clear of one another, even during the holidays, and honestly, I'm totally fine with that. We clash, and it's pretty obvious to the whole family, but no one seems to get the reason behind it. They just know we had a clash, and honestly, I haven't altered a thing since neither of us came out looking great from it. For more than 6 years, I kept this under wraps, but at my celebration of love, I finally spilled the beans. Alongside my bridesmaids, my maid of honor kept the guest list tight, only inviting close family and friends. Since we weren't following the usual practice of only inviting women, my fiancé was there too. I really hoped that all the people who mattered to me would show up. Still, my parents decided to bring my estranged sister into the mix for reasons I can't quite grasp. Honestly, I have no clue what was going through their minds, but I was totally shocked when they walked in with her. I was totally taken aback to find out that my sister looked just as shocked to see me. As they entered, the atmosphere shifted instantly, and it felt like a tense showdown was about to unfold. After what felt like an eternity, my parents finally came to us and started talking. They mentioned that quite a bit had shifted in the 6 years after the tragedy. Ultimately, they believed we should take responsibility since they perceived us as being older and wiser. It was clear from her expression that my sister had totally been played by our parents to end up in that situation. I told my parents they had no right to pull this on such an important day for me before she even had a chance to respond. I casually suggested that they accompany my sister. I was stuck with my parents not wanting to leave, so I did my best to keep my cool and not spoil the moment. They suggested I let go of what's behind me. It felt like they were downplaying everything, acting like it was no big deal, and I could just move on easily, which really got under my skin. I acted out the whole episode to jog their memories and ensure everyone else was on the same page about what went down. Several years ago, I asked if anyone present thought I should just move on from this. If I had tied the knot with someone else, things would have played out differently. But I ended up marrying the same guy my sister had openly flirted with when I first introduced him to the family. She totally went for it right in front of me, acting like he was some kind of player in a game he never even agreed to join. Honestly, she came at me first after everything, just because I pointed out her behavior and called her a loser. I've never experienced someone trying to hurt me like that before, so it was really traumatic for me. Even after all that, she just pretended like nothing was wrong and never said sorry to me in the last 6 years. I wasn't about to feel pressured into forgiving her or letting go of what happened before. I never let someone like her back into my life because I thought it was more important to hold on to the past. It was totally ridiculous for my parents to think they could just show up with her to my celebration of love and expect everyone to go along with it. Luckily, my sister caught on to her error and made her exit before my parents could argue anymore. My mom trailed after her, probably to smooth things over, since I figure she wasn't too happy about being deceived either. My dad hung out with me for a bit, but I let him know that since he let me down, I wasn't really in the mood to chat at the moment. He got really annoyed and called me irrational, saying I was acting like a brat and that it was pointless to dwell on something from several years ago. I honestly didn't see myself as being difficult, but I told him to leave because I just didn't want to get into a fight. He bounced after just a few minutes. After that, I was totally overwhelmed and needed to take a few minutes to collect my thoughts. Thankfully, my fiancé and maid of honor had my back, and before long, I was back to being me again. Everyone else jumped in, recognizing that I needed a distraction and was trying to avoid thoughts of my sister or dad, so we carried on with the celebration like nothing was amiss. After that whole thing went down, my fiancé and I just headed the cottage and didn't really talk about it anymore. I was fine with not hearing from my parents since that incident about 5 days ago. Honestly, I think it's best if we take a break after everything that went down. Honestly, I wasn't expecting to hear from them so soon, but they reached out, not to apologize, but to put the blame on me for my sister's situation. This morning, my mom gave me a call. Right after I replied, she told me to get in touch with my aunt and make sure she extended the job offer to my sister that they had been talking about. I tried to convince my mom to calm down because she looked really stressed and upset, and honestly, I had no clue what she was going on about. She went on to say that my sister had been unemployed for about 6 months because of layoffs and downsizing at her last job. She ended up moving back in with our parents a few weeks ago because she figured out she just couldn't swing the rent anymore. She was on the hunt for a job, but finding one that she actually liked or that offered decent pay was proving to be a challenge. My mom talked about this with my aunt, who's starting a new business. Since my sister had experience in marketing, my aunt initially decided to make her the head of marketing. So my aunt just went silent and ended up taking back the invite after that whole celebration of love thing where I brought up what happened several years ago. Given that I was always my aunt's favorite, it didn't really catch me off guard, and I thought it made sense when my mom passed along the message my aunt had sent her to me. My aunt mentioned in her response that it was clear my sister had significant anger management issues based on her interpretation of the situation I shared. My aunt was really upset that she didn't even bother to say sorry, not even at the celebration of love. Additionally, my aunt mentioned that she initially decided to hire my sister due to their family connection, but she had interviewed a more qualified candidate for the position just a few weeks earlier. She decided to give the position to the more qualified candidate since she had a change of heart. Honestly, that made a lot of sense to me, and I was really happy to see my aunt come around. I told my mom there was nothing I could do after reading her message. Having witnessed the downsides of nepotism in the workplace, I really didn't want my aunt to be the kind of person who complicates things further. If it weren't for that, my sister would have definitely landed a job thanks to family connections. The actual reason my sister didn't get the job was that it seemed my aunt found someone who fit the role better. I decided to let my aunt handle her business without my input, so I told her I wouldn't be discussing it with her. My mother totally flipped out and started yelling at me, all because she wanted to ruin my sister's reputation in front of the family. Since it had been ages since I last talked about the issue, she mentioned that it might not be necessary to bring it up at my celebration of love. So I kicked things off by calling my sister a loser, fully aware it would sting. She ended up thinking I was trying to make her look bad and play the victim to get the family's sympathy, all while trying to come off as the good sibling. Just to clarify, I wasn't concealing anything when I shared what happened. I mentioned that I had called her a loser prior to her attack. Still, I don't think that using derogatory names justifies her getting into a physical fight. It really feels unfair for my mom to claim that I brought up the situation just to damage my sister's reputation. I just blocked my parents and ended the call. After thinking it over, I'm starting to question whether bringing up the incident was the best move. My mom mentioned on the call that I hadn't really given my sister a fair shot, even though she's changed quite a bit over the years. She admitted that was kind of harsh on her part. I mentioned the incident from several years ago when my sister attacked me, which ended up costing her a job offer. Is it okay for me to mention this? Update 1. Hey everyone. Before I dive into what happened after my first post, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you who took a moment to share your thoughts. Thanks a ton for the kind words and suggestions. They really mean a lot to me. So here's the deal with what happened after I decided to block my parents. My parents couldn't get in touch with me since my sister had been cut off for the last 6 years. They decided to come to see me since they had no other way to reach out. I seriously can't deal with all of this right now since I'm getting married in a few weeks. I've got a ton of stuff going on right now. After getting back from work, my fiance and I had to rush out for a last-minute big day dress fitting, so I asked them to head out when they showed up. We were all set to go, but they showed up at the wrong time. I just knew that if I opened the door, they'd find a way to keep talking and drive me crazy. They still didn't show up, even after I said I might call the cops. Honestly, I was hesitant to involve the authorities because it felt like overkill. I never wanted to be that person who calls the cops for every little thing. We decided to let them in, have a quick chat, and then bounce after talking to my fiance. Once we decided, we let them in, swung the door open, and urged them to move quickly since we had other plans to get to. Luckily, my parents were straightforward. Apparently, my aunt decided to pull her offer to hire my sister because of how I acted at my celebration of love. They were adamant that I reach out to my aunt and ensure my sister secured a job, as if I was somehow responsible for the situation. I really didn't want to go over the same points again since it was just the same argument. I let them know that there was nothing I could do since I had already discussed it with my mom on the phone. They were aware of my hectic schedule, especially with my big day just around the corner, so it felt pointless to come over and go over it all once more. So my sister just decided to cut me off. She insisted they had ulterior motives for being there, aside from just the job offer. I was totally caught off guard by that since it was our first chat in the 6 years. She went on to explain that it was actually her influence that brought them there. She totally felt the need to say sorry to me. Honestly, I'm still trying to figure out my feelings from that time, so I'm at a loss for words here. I really don't trust her at all, so I had major concerns about what she was up to. I decided to just be straightforward with her because of that. I wondered whether she genuinely wanted to apologize, or if she was just playing nice because she thought I could help her get the job. I let her know that I wasn't able to assist, so it seemed pointless for her to keep talking if it was just about the job. She looked a bit surprised by my honesty, but she managed to clarify that she was there to apologize and that our parents had come to talk about the job. Clearly, this was a topic that hadn't been discussed, as even my parents looked taken aback when I glanced their way. My sister, on the other hand, appeared totally unfazed. She claimed she was just there to say sorry and had zero interest in the role. For the past 6 years, she really put a lot of thought into her actions towards me, yet somehow she always managed to come up with an excuse not to apologize. Still, she couldn't escape the truth that she had treated me poorly after the celebration of love. My fiancé and I were definitely struggling to wrap our heads around everything, but I could sense she was being serious from her tone and behavior. She told me she had been holding on to resentment towards me since childhood because she always felt the need to compete with me. Realizing that nothing held significance in the outside world, she came to terms with the fact that she had squandered her entire youth and adolescence trying to outdo me. She felt pretty bad about it since we could have totally been friends, especially after I had tried several times to be her buddy. She admitted that she had distanced herself from me because she viewed me as competition. It was wild to hear her say everything I had been feeling too. I can't believe I'm admitting this, but as she shared her story, I found myself tearing up. Later on, she had a conversation with my fiancé and conveyed her remorse for how she had treated him during their brief interaction. She admitted that her apology was way past due and that in her obsession with trying to beat me, she completely overlooked the kind of person she had turned into. She just wrapped it up and moved on without waiting for us to say anything. She just said that we didn't need to forgive her. She just needed to get it off her chest. And now that she has, hopefully, she'll leave us alone. It was just me, my parents, and my fiancé in the room when she walked out. None of us saw it coming, and there we were, just sitting in disbelief, trying to wrap our heads around what had just happened. So my fiancé and I headed out for my fitting after my parents just dipped without saying anything. We kept everything to ourselves until we were back at the cottage. We just started talking about what my sister said like half an hour ago. Honestly, after 6 years, her apology really struck me as incredibly mature. Her actions spoke volumes, confirming the sincerity behind her words. My fiancé and I are having a discussion about whether we should forgive her or not. We're still in the middle of processing it, so it's a bit early to make any conclusions. We're thinking about reaching out to her later to let her know we've forgiven her. I need a bit more time before I can tell her that everything's okay, even though I've already unblocked her. It's wild to think it took her so long to see that we could have been friends, but honestly, I'm really glad it happened. Hey everyone, just dropping in with an update. I just noticed that in my last update, I forgot to mention what I plan to do regarding my parents. I totally spaced on it since I was caught up in my sister's situation. So yeah, my parents haven't reached out since we last saw them a few days back. We're just going to keep steering clear of them since I really don't believe they feel remorse for anything. The way my sister and I ended up together is definitely something I blame my parents for. They had the chance to step up as parents, but they totally missed the mark. It feels like they've gone out of their way to make it nearly impossible for me to keep them around, no matter how hard I try. We've had our fair share of battles and disagreements over the past 6 years, and I've made an effort to let go of the past, but I'm really struggling to find a way forward now. It's just frustrating that some people clearly don't give a damn about my feelings, or even my sister's for that matter. They can't keep getting a pass for this behavior. Ultimately, it seems like we won't be in touch with them, and honestly, I don't think they'll show up to my big day. So my fiance and I are planning to reach out to them in a few days to let them know they're no longer invited to the big day, just to be on the safe side. Here's the third update. Hey folks, just wanted to share that I tied the knot last week. Everything was awesome and just as I imagined it would be, and I had an amazing time. As expected, my parents were nowhere to be found. My partner and I didn't even need to interact with them. I got an email saying there was a major mix-up and they won't be showing up. They claimed that my sister and I had started to paint them in a negative light and that they were already aware of our feelings about the strained relationship. They mentioned that even though they tried hard to be great parents, they've decided to take a break and focus on their own lives, feeling that we don't appreciate their presence anymore. Honestly, if that's their choice, I'm totally fine with it. Good vibes only. A couple of days after I shared my latest update, I reached out to my sister. I let her know that I'd really like her to come to my big day and that I accepted her apology. It was such an awesome day, and she totally accepted my invite and showed up to the big day. It's ridiculous to imagine that I would have looked down on my parents a few months back if they had told me my sister would be at my big day instead of them. But here we are now. Honestly, I'm just relieved that everything went smoothly and that I'm finally reconnecting with my sister. This works for me for now, but who knows, maybe my parents will come around and say they're sorry to us. Things are going great, and my husband and I are about to head off on our honeymoon. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't joined the community yet, consider doing so and tap that notification bell to keep up with more unbelievable real-life stories unfolding around you.